All right. Next up, we have another panel all about unlocking stablecoin adoption, bridging the UX gap in DeFi. And on this one, we have Alokik of Circle, Sebastian of Gnosis, Kain of Infinex, Mikael of Gearbox, and it will be moderated by Glenn of Kiln. Let's give them a round of applause.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Glenn. I'm from a company called Kiln. I'm the moderator for today. We're going to be talking about the user experience in DeFi and how that's affecting, in a good way or a bad way, the adoption of stablecoins. So maybe just to kick it off, if you guys could just give us a quick intro, who you are, who you work for.
Hey all, thanks for having us here. I'm Sebastian, founder of Hopper and VP Technology at Gnosis. And yeah, interested in seeing how we can actually improve stablecoin adoption. I'm coming more from the user side, but yeah, happy to contribute.
Kain from Infinex, also founder of Synthetics previously. So very focused on user experience at the moment with Infinex. That's our goal.
Hello, I'm Mikael, co-founder and CTO of Gearbox. And now we are working on embedding lending experience directly into the account abstraction wallet. And we call it credit account abstraction. It's why it's so hot topic for us.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Alokik. I'm a group PM at Circle, focused a lot on stablecoin experience and utility. So means like thinking about how we can take USDC cross-chain with CCTP, how we think about account abstraction and what all we can do to support it. So super focused on UX and utility of stablecoins.
Thanks, guys. So first question. If we think about some specific UX challenges in DeFi, like what's currently the biggest barrier for stablecoin adoption? And then maybe taking that a bit further, what are the key challenges and breakthroughs to addressing these barriers?
Yeah, I guess I can start, sure. If I'm going to solve the problem, I should be able to speak about it. So I think that what I learned, and I think what a lot of DeFi founders have learned over the last 5-6 years building in DeFi, that's become really obvious in the last 12 months, is that building for enthusiasts is kind of not the end goal, right? It worked really well for the first 2 or 3 years, all the way up to DeFi summer, and then Degen Spartan cursed us all. But we had this period where everyone was an enthusiast, everyone cared deeply about the tech, everyone cared about the mission. It was very ideological, and we were never able to break out of that. And so I think that the sort of challenge for post-DeFi summer DeFi is how do we build something that is usable for the average user that doesn't care about the technology, doesn't care about why we're doing it, just wants utility, right? They have a job to be done and they want to do it. And when we think about stablecoins today, we've managed, in spite of ourselves, to build incredible network effects, right? We've made it as hard as possible for people to use the technology, and yet so many people are using it because the stablecoins are just better. They're better payment rails. And I come from an e-commerce background, and payments are really challenging. People on the integration side, right? On the user side, using a credit card, we've gotten really good, one-click checkout, saving credit cards, etc. We've made the user experience much better, but we haven't necessarily made it a lot easier. I mean, Stripe, I think, did a really good job of this, and obviously scaled this. But on the DeFi side, we still haven't gotten to the UX improvements yet. I think one of the things that we have gotten wrong is conflating onboarding with on-ramping. Right, we kind of put those two things together, and on-ramping is a challenge for sure, right? Like the intersection of fiat, we've got someone on the panel who understands this. The intersection of fiat and crypto is a really challenging space for a whole bunch of reasons: regulatory reasons, UX reasons. There's jurisdictional reasons. There's different markets. There's a whole bunch of challenges around how you actually on-ramp people. But the onboarding problem is actually a far bigger problem. Right? How do you make it really easy for someone to get access to crypto, not necessarily to convert their fiat into crypto, but to just become a crypto user, right? And that's what we're trying to do at Infinex, is make that as seamless as possible, as easy as possible for someone to start using crypto. And one of the ways that we used to do this back in the day is manually, right? We were all doing things that didn't scale. We would give people ETH. We would give people Bitcoin. We would set a wallet up for someone and we would do it. And then we all got too rich and lazy and we're like, that's really painful, right? Because when you onboard someone to crypto, they become your responsibility for life, right? And that's really challenging. So you know what I'm talking about, right? The person calls you up 3 years later and they're like, so those words, I didn't really need to save them, did I? And so, we have this responsibility, I think, to make that process as easy as possible, right? Not the on-ramping process, that's Circle's problem, but the onboarding process. How do we onboard someone to be able to use crypto without making it really hard, without them needing to be an enthusiast? Because the enthusiasts we've run out of. There's no more enthusiasts. And it's even worse, if any of you follow Cami from the Defiant, even the existing enthusiasts are over it. It's too hard, right? It's too painful to be on chain all the time. And so it's not just that we ran out of enthusiasts. The existing enthusiasts are also like falling away from attrition. So we need to make the overall experience better, and we need to make the onboarding experience better, not the on-ramping experience.
Very good.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree, because previously we have a FATIC protocol thesis. And in this case, the users start to work with your application. After 10 steps, you can't ever control. So you should create your wallet, create a mnemonic, provide some ETH to make it possible to do operation, etc. So you could not have a direct access, and it's a huge gap between users and us. And another part that each time in Web3, users has two major stuff before doing any action. The first point, it's complex. So DeFi is not for people without understanding mass finance, etc. And the second part, you all time scared about something goes wrong and you can lose money. There is no 24/7 bank line you can call and undo. Yeah. So if you have some desirable amount of money, you really check twice that everything goes well. And at this point, we decided to make a pretty, I believe, better step forward. So I believe the best interface which does not exist, it's like code. So if it could be done naturally. And in Gearbox, we want to be integrated into any account abstraction wallet, so maybe with Infinix as well, when lending experience could be fully abstracted. And all these numbers, because if you show a number in interface, people start worrying about what the hell factor means, what's going on, how it would change, etc. We create a lot of mental problems for people worrying about the numbers. If you can simplify extend experience, and be like a credit card, you do not really thinking about when you make a payment, what's going inside. And it's a huge, very huge technological world how the payments work. If you can achieve this in crypto, it would be great step forward. So I think simplifying and removing interfaces, it's what we should work all together.
I mean, I would add basically like articulating what is this gap, right? And to me, this gap is this perception that on the one hand side, we offer something that is self-custodial in nature. You are in charge, you understand what is going on. But on the other hand, we want to onboard kind of normies, right? And I think everybody got exactly what Kain said here, and I think we all agree on that. But how do you do that? Well, you don't go at that by telling them about, this thing called DAI. Oh, by the way, now it's not called DAI anymore, but it's actually US dollar. No, people know the US dollar, right? So how do you square these two? That's really, really tough, right? So you want people to understand it's just a US dollar, right? But on the other hand side, you want to give them this self-custodial empowerment. And squaring these two, I think, is incredibly hard. So, and I mean, how on the Gnosis side we tackle that is by Gnosis Pay having basically a Visa debit card experience that everybody understands. You understand there's like US dollar on it. They don't really need to understand what's behind it, right? And yes, we leave that to the wallets and all the front ends to figure that one out. But I hope we get there, that we can spend money like granted, the onboarding experience is hard, but you can spend it just in the way you spend cash today.
Yeah, I think we hear this all the time with respect to like talking to a bunch of different protocols in terms of what their biggest challenge is as it comes to using USDC. And I think the framing is essentially like what almost every protocol needs is like a one-click experience, right? That's what everyone is kind of going towards. And the two areas where that one-click experience is the hardest is on-ramps and like getting assets from another chain to a specific chain. I mean, on-ramp, when you look at like, hey, I want to use this app, you go to the front end of the app and you're just like wanting to do something, the amount of steps to actually get your money from fiat to the specific asset that you want to kind of deposit in that protocol is just like too many, right? You need the asset, you need gas, you need like a bunch of different stuff. Ideally, what the ideal experience should be, like to your point around Stripe, should be just like a one-click experience. I'm doing something and something's happening in the backend and money comes there, right? So I think we think that we're seeing some good experiments there, but we think that this like off-chain liquidity to like depositing into on-chain can very soon be a one-click experience, wherein, for example, like Coinbase did something called Magic Spend, which I think was a pretty interesting product, wherein with one click you can connect your Coinbase centralized balance and like directly on-chain. Like that's, I think, the kind of experience. How can you get like more off-chain liquidity sources that you have on-chain in one click? And the same is for like assets on another chain. Like you already have crypto on some other chain. Bridging, like you have to actively go into a bridge, get assets there. All of that should ideally be just like one click, and there's some orchestration layer under hood that kind of does everything there. So I think like more one-click experiences for people who are actually aware about what protocol they want is important. And then, yes, there's this whole problem of like kind of crossing the chasm to more users who don't understand that. And there are like a bunch of problems, right, from like discovery, et cetera, on how do you actually enable them to do the action that they want.
The thing about one-click experiences, though, is in order to have a one-click, or in order for an application to do anything, it needs to have state. Yep. And we've boxed ourselves into this insane place where we've built thin clients everywhere that have no state. The only state they have is actually on-chain. And so you just can't actually build anything that can help a user. Yep. Like the user is the thing that is managing the state movement from one click to another. And we just need to fix that. Like it's just an obvious broken element of DeFi right now.
And do you think wallets play a big part in this transforming the user experience, or is it a shared responsibility across like all platforms, all kind of actors in the ecosystem?
For wallets specifically? Yeah, I mean, to me, a wallet is the interface to the world, and I'm not speaking for a wallet here, but to me it's like, wallet is kind of the thing that matters. If I think about it, end of day, like, what is actually going to capture the value? Like, is it the searchers? Is it the users? Like, is it the DeFi protocols? I actually do think it will come down to wallets, and I do think it will come down to some level of interestingly regulated interfaces also, because we cannot, and that's what I meant with this gap, right? You cannot like bridge this gap between empowering the user like fully and abstracting things away. Like abstracting things away means you disempower a user. And that's not good. And if you do that, I think you should be subject to regulation, right? So there is just no way to do that, to disempower a user and still go to the regulator and say, oh, guys, but by the way, we do this decentralized thing, and that's why we're allowed to do all that, right? No, you're not. And, I think that's why wallets are important, and that's the way to get there.
I totally agree that wallets is the thing we should focus on. And we made like some marketing analysis, and we found an interesting fact that wallets today is not funded well, because the protocols itself generate a lot of profits, yields, etc. And really, if you check the economy of different wallets, in majority cases, for them it's hard to add some additional charge for users, because it's a very like zero switching cost. You can't charge more for swaps, etc. And it's a very hard to create a robust business serving users. So at the same time, you gateway to the crypto, and it's hard to earn money. And At the same time, the Fed protocols has a lot of money, but has 0 users. And to fill the gap, our idea is to create a credit accounts which works literally like a credit card in normal world. So we want to build a partnership when the wallet could create a credit account as an entity. And at this case, users could use all assets on their account as collateral and borrow against it easily inside the wallet. And the protocol itself are really able to share some profits with the wallet. And as you know, in Web2 world, the major source of profits for banks in the card sector comes from credit card, not debit one, because it's recurrent payments. People are willing to pay continuously. It's not like one-time events. The second part, it's really create a better attracting users, so you became a user and it increases the switching cost. And it's what we already have in normal world. So I believe embedding credits, and we use fully over-collateralized credits through our technology, could really create and fill the gap between wallets who has a lot of users but hard with a business model, and protocols who are willing to attract new users, what we have started, but could make money and create this on-chain user experience.
I think one of the challenges for wallets, and I was there when Gnosis started to try and roll out their app store, and you're smiling because it was a fucking nightmare. There was this issue where we were like, okay, everyone, there's this huge amount of value that's in Gnosis safes, right? And it can't interact with DeFi. So let's connect it to DeFi. And so the solution was, and Gnosis is not exactly a wallet, but it's like, it's something like that or whatever. And so you had this situation where the Gnosis BDs went out and begged all of the DeFi protocols to build their own kind of little application inside the Gnosis Safe App Store, 1-inch synthetics, etc. And it really never worked because you have this separation between the wallet, which manages the signing, the protocol, which is the on-chain contracts, and then the actual interface, right? And Gnosis, I think, got kind of stuck in this place where every single time the contracts would be updated, there was no way to kind of push that forward into the interface, and so it was always broken. And so whenever you went to use it, you like go click on the 1-inch button, and it just doesn't work, right? And when you have these separations, there's no one person in this triangle between protocol, DApp, and wallet managing the signing that has the power to actually change the way that this is flowing, right? And Gnosis was close, right? Like it was almost there, but you guys weren't quite willing to kind of just take the whole thing and own it. And I think that's, with Infinex, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to actually pull all three of those things into a single application. And there's trade-offs, right? Because it's censorable, so you lose censorship resistance. It can be non-custodial, but that it manages signing, it manages the interface, and it actually can then wrap the protocols in a way that allows it to be much more opinionated. And so until we do something like this, until we have a fat application that can kind of sit there and be there for the user and manage the user experience, we're not going to be able to break this, right? That separation of concerns is really problematic.
Just as a disclaimer, like Safe and Gnosis are separate by now. But
sorry. I'm too old. I'm too old.
Same thing here. No, but I mean, the other thing that I would like to add, I mean, some points taken, but also why to use 1-inch. It's called CalSwap, and it works great.
Touché.
So I think that, I don't have that many issues with safe dApps, but, at the same time, I think we all have proven absolutely nothing until we have shown how we can run sustainable business on any of that. Until you have a wallet that can pay the salaries of all your devs and all your great conferences from fees that you make one way or another, as a DeFi protocol, the same thing, as a chain, the same thing, we've all proven absolutely nothing. You give out a free product, congrats. Thanks VCs, right? Like, we need to get to a sustainable business model, and I'm kind of happy to see that in its pressure on wallets specifically, that, there's been a washout, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how people actually run sustainable businesses.
Just to follow on what you said, Kain, we work with a lot of wallets, and one thing we've seen is traction on any feature capability, especially these earn type capabilities. When users have too much choice, or there's the dApp store type setup, it's nothing compared to something that's integrated into the native flow of the wallet, and it feels like it's part of the wallet's kind of native platform. And we see it time and time again. So totally agree.
Yeah, just to quickly add, I think like to me, wallets will simplify a lot of the UX, but it'll go one of two ways. Either you have like a global wallet for users, and what they do is mainly like give permissions to different dApp front ends, and like that's how like the usage will be. Like I'm going to this dApp, I just give them a permission to pull certain amount of funds in some way with permissions and session keys and all of that stuff, or it'll be like to your point, like all of those would converge into one like global kind of setup, like one global front end which will manage both the protocol, wallet, all the signing and all of that. And that'll be for like specific use cases, like this is like my wallet for earning, etc. So I think it can go like one of both either ways. It's a little early to tell, but I think both those experiences could be pretty neat for the end user.
The problem with that, though, is like you create this situation where you've got, and this needs a diagram, unfortunately, so just come with me. But if you create a vertically integrated product solution, right? Like you create a wallet like Hyperliquid, right? Okay, we're going to create the thing where, you know, signing, the protocol, even the chain, right? It's like fully vertically integrated. You have still forced the user to now have it's like the 15th standard problem, right? Like you now, okay, great, now I have another wallet for another chain for another use case. Like it's very hard to bring that back in and kind of have a holistic, solution if even in that vertical chain for perps, for example, right? So it's like, oh, now I have a perps wallet and an Aave wallet, and it doesn't make doesn't make the problem go away for a user.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think if you even look at the Web2 side, today also we have a bunch of different front ends for different use cases. Like there's like a different front end for your like pension account, or there's a different front end for like your stocks, there's a different front end where you buy crypto. There are products which merge all of them and give you a one-stop. So I think it'll be both ways though. I agree with you that like as an end user, then if you're going to these like different front ends and then putting in money in each of them, then you probably need some like portfolio viewer.
Some aggregation layer, exactly. It can't just be like thin feature. I mean, because the comparison is Binance. Like that is the gold star. You know, if Binance can wrap all of these different features into a single platform, we're not going to compete by having 20 platforms that you need to replicate Binance.
100%, yeah.
So we mentioned account abstraction before, just very briefly. Maybe we can, and we could talk about this all day, but maybe we can just double click on that a little bit. So it's often discussed as a game changer. We see it being implemented in various ways and various platforms. But what do you guys see as how this is going to transform the experience? So what practical challenges kind of there are in actually implementing it properly?
Maybe I'll start. So stablecoins are used in two ways today, right? When you look at how stablecoins are used, they're either a store of value or a medium of exchange, right? When I look at account abstraction, right, it kind of builds a much better experience for both those use cases, and I'll explain why. As a store of value, if you're storing a significant amount of any stable that you have, you need you don't need to kind of memorize seed phrases. You need probably like a lot more non-custodial. You need something like passkeys. Probably if you have a lot of money, you need something like a multi-sig. And we already saw that, like Safe, I think, stores something like 5-6% of all USDCs actually in a safe, because it has like multi-sigs, and it is a very good store of value. So I think for the store of value use case, you would see more secure models, which account abstraction by decoupling the key and the account and adding programmability at the account level enables. For the medium of exchange usage, it's all about like simplifying UX, right? You need automatic transactions. You don't want like ideally just signing for everything. Like a simple DCA doing that on-chain is today not possible in a non-custodial way. It's so easy to do on like a centralized exchange, but it's not possible to do on-chain. So medium of exchange gets enabled by adding, again, programmability, like session keys, stuff like that. So I think yes, so I think account abstraction is extremely good from a UX perspective for both these use cases. The third thing which we hear all the time is for payments and payment related use cases, if I have to simply send USDC today to you, I need native tokens somewhere, right? And there's this whole aspect about account abstraction around paymasters and kind of creating that decentralized layer network around actually using it, which I think is also very important for how stablecoins in general are used.
At my point, account abstraction is a really great step forward, and we still undervalue the things we could build upon the stack. So people today are more focused about simplifying authentication, which is significant. But let me give you a few examples. The first part, of course, it's a paymaster. So you as application could provide some kind of payment for gas. With L2 ecosystem, it's totally doable to attract some kind of trial version of your application, or you can do better, cover the stuff for these payments. If you have a DeFi app, it's totally fine to pay a small amount to cover all fees what we have in today's application. And in this case, you totally move all complexity from end users. The second part is modular account abstraction. It's a great utility, and for example, we are working on the module which could literally transfer your account into credit account in one click. So this is one-click experience, and boom, you have extend more money on your wallet. In the familiar interfaces, nothing more complicated. And the third part, of course, we have a lot of problems on the smart contract UX. It's a really industry that people do not care, because in majority cases, protocol developers are more focused about security and how things happen. And then UX people should really design the interface. But we have a lot of problems, for example, with allowances and approvals. It's all time painful experience. When you create and approve for some contract, you should trust the contract, you should check the address, and all time when protocol is hacked, everything is going, hey, go to revoke approvals and remove of approvals. So we could really do better. And in account abstraction, we really allow users to create a budget. So in one click, I can make an allowance, I can make transactions, and I remove allowance totally. So it's improved security, and now it's become safer. And it's a huge barrier if you use every day, if you're in crypto and read a lot of hacks, you're all time worrying about, am I keep some kind of allowances for this protocol? If we can remove it, it's really good to improve existing ERC20 standard, which is not ideal, believe me. And then make it much easier for users to remove this approval complexity and worrying about it also could be done. So I am very bullish about account abstraction. I think it's a great step forward, but maybe wallet side also have something, how we can use it to improve the whole overall experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think, certainly in the Ethereum ecosystem, account abstraction, there's a number of different approaches, some of which are more ivory tower than others, right? But one of the challenges with making a change like this is if you make this change in isolation and you don't solve some of the other issues, you can actually make things worse, right? So there was a huge debate where people were like, wait, so you're telling me that we've made a better technology that allows someone to be drained of all of their assets in a single signature, right? And that's true. It is a better technology because it allows you to do more things simply. And now if that power is handed over to a threat actor, they can drain you much faster, right? We need to actually solve the threat actor side, right? Of not getting phished, not getting, which means we need to wrap signing up in things like passkeys, for example, so that we don't have seed phrases floating around. So we can't just solve these things in isolation, right? We have to solve the holistic problem, which is honestly the onboarding problem. If we solve the onboarding problem, we solve all of the different issues that an average user will have in interacting with things on chain, then we can use account abstraction and not worry about it as much. But in isolation, it actually makes things worse and people will get wrecked harder.
I would just say for the application developers, the small brain version is just use safe, right? So, I mean, from the Gnosis side, right, if I look at across the stack, right, I mentioned Gnosis Pay. Every Gnosis Pay account is safe. I didn't mention Circles, some UBI thing that Martin is shilling here a lot. Every Circles account is safe. even on the infrastructure side, right? So I work in this Hopper Mixnet. Every Hopper Mixnet node is a safe, right? So everything is a safe. You get all this stuff for free, and like a lot of greatness. That doesn't mean that safe is fully there yet in terms of decentralization, but you can just offboard that to some other team to make it somebody else's problem. That's what I like about safe.
Very good. And do you think that, like, what lessons can we learn from maybe the Web 2 user experience, bring it to Web 3?
So our CTO is a Web 2 guy. We've dragged him kicking and screaming into crypto over the last year. It's been kind of hilarious to watch. He actually has a really good blog post. You can check it out on his Twitter. If you go to the Infinex Twitter, it's linked from there. Talking about all of the things that we've learned in this kind of separation of concerns and things that the JavaScript community learned in the early days around breaking the kind of Microsoft monopoly, but then leading to these unintended consequences. I think the major thing that Web 2 has learned is you need to make people not think, right? Like the way to make things accessible is to make people not think. And we've heard it a couple of times here. Web 3 doesn't just make you think, it makes you petrified. Like it scares the shit out of you, and it needs to, because what you're doing is very scary, right? Every click could completely wreck you. And so we need to find a way to let people do things, to find the jobs that they need to do, and let them do them in a safe way, which again is a holistic thing, right? It's not something you can solve in isolation.
I would add, and I hope that's at least somewhat controversial, we should not learn from Web 2. If we try to learn from Web 2, you know what we can converge on? It's called Binance.com. And Binance.com works great, right? I have no complaints on Binance.com, like super fast service, super fast website, super nice charts and shit. That's not what we want to converge on, right? If we want to converge on something new, we have to embrace it. And we have to think in new paradigms and new ways of interaction. The only thing we think about is, how can I get to a Twitter-like UX? Well, you're going to get there, right? But you're going to get there compromising the values that make up for this new space.
I was right there with you for a long time, but honestly, after bashing my head against a brick wall for 5 years, I'm like, we need to pivot. What we're doing is not working. It works for enthusiasts, but it's not working for the average user. And at the end of the day, if you can't onboard a normie user, then the tech is just going to die on the vine, right? And I'm not saying compromise everything, right? I'm not saying compromise everything. We should absolutely not compromise being non-custodial. Like that, for me, still, that's a bright line. But there's times where, and I mean, you guys do it, right? It's okay to be censorable. There's aspects of safe, right, that are censorable. But as long as you can go to the chain and get your assets out, then you're kind of okay. You might not be able to get the functionality, but you'll not lose your assets. And I think that that's actually a compromise that's worth making, that lets us have a much better experience for the user. If we're trying to play, and like, honestly, it's a fucking lie. If we're trying to play this thin client game where we say, the Aave interface is actually censorship resistant and non-custodial, it's hosted in AWS, bro. Like, come on. Right? Like,
yep.
We're LARPing as decentralized and censorship resistant when we weren't. And we need to just lean into that and go, you know what? The contracts are safe. Uniswap is immutable. Uniswap is safe. But, I mean, Uniswap's figured this out. Hayden's like, YOLO, let's build a mobile app, right? Like, we need things that are censorable, because that's the only way we're going to improve the UX. And we can once we've figured that out, in 5 years' time, when someone turns up and says, I'm going to make a better version of the Uniswap app that is censorship resistant, that'll be amazing. But for the next 5 years, we need to accept that maybe censorship resistance is not. I mean, we've got 4 years where probably we can get away with not worrying about censorship as much. Let's make the most of those 4 years and make sure that at the end of this cycle, we're in a place where people are trying to solve the censorship problem. But as long as it's non-custodial and as long as people can use it, I think that's the critical thing.
I mean, hard disagree, because basically, basically, the fact that Aave or Uniswap is deployed on something .com or something, that's ridiculous. We have a system, and it's called .eth. Anybody heard about ENS? Anybody heard about IPFS? We have the fucking technology. The only reason why we don't use it is because people are lazy. And people want to get to the fastest, slickest UI.
Honestly, no.
Like we can do it, and for me, like the reason is like UX is shit. I agree. Okay?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
But there's no fundamental reason that we cannot have absolutely best UX in a fully self-custodial nature. And my magic moment for realizing that is actually Ether Delta, right? So for the kind of actual DeFi boomers here.
Are you sure about that?
So Ether Delta was the first exchange that I went to, and I was like, okay, I have to trade some shit token here, but where's the register button? Where's the annoying like registration and KYC and all the shit, right? And I was right there. I could trade. Sure, the trade wasn't great and looked like shit, but so did all other centralized exchanges at the time, to be fair. Like Kraken was running on a Raspberry Pi, basically.
You were there, but you were there for ideological reasons as much as anything, right? And the problem is you're an enthusiast. Yeah, of course you can. I loved Ether Delta as well, right? Like IDEX, Ether Delta, those were amazing, good proofs of concept. They do not scale. And we know that because they didn't beat Binance. If they scaled and normal users were willing to use them, then they would have beaten Binance, and they didn't. And neither did Uniswap. Uniswap got to like 1% of Coinbase one day, and we were all like doing victory laps. Like, no, sorry, like we didn't get there. We need to pivot to something else. It's not working.
I totally agree, and I believe all things could exist, so we should not pick only one kind of way, let's do everything for users or for pro things. But I think it's a great comparison with crypto is a Linux community and maybe Windows here. It's still a Linux desktop, and I really enjoy with Ubuntu sometimes. It's still 5% of the market, and people like terminal. People like to fix driver progress. It's really some kind of enjoyment when finally it works and you have similar experience like in Windows, but it's fully open source and you control everything. It's a really enjoyable experience, but not for everyone. And why people and corporation, etc., prefer Windows? Because they know how to cook it and it simply works. It's not good, it's not the same, but I totally agree until we have a self-custodial and we can create a new experience for users, which could definitely find, hey, in crypto, this thing is much better than in normal finance. And there are some different things we can deliver that. It's like games, etc., etc. It makes a lot of sense maybe to remove some kind of layers when you can definitely make everything verifiable, create either scan links, etc., just to deliver the industry further.
Awesome. Time's almost up, so I got one last question for you guys. We need to make it quick. What's one project, one dApp, one innovation that you're most excited about right now, and why?
Okay, I can start. So I'll actually name two. I think one, really quickly though, I think ZeroDev, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're like a wallet as a service provider. And I think they're doing some incredible stuff around embedded smart wallets for DeFi, like almost having like an abstracted experience and what that would look like. And also tackling a lot of like the onboarding challenges, like things like addresses, how do you enable simpler deposits from centralized exchanges into these different apps and etc. So that's one. Second is this company called Dymo. And I think they've basically nailed the UX for what a global Venmo on-chain, completely non-custodial would look like. So yeah, those were two.
I just came from the NEAR redacted conference, so I probably have to shill something from NEAR. I think chain signatures are something that's a huge unlock for DeFi. One of the challenges, talking about taking down Binance, that we've had over the years is we can't support XRP or Cardano or Litecoin. Now, as much as we don't want to support those things, unfortunately, the market says that you need to support them, and we're LARPing if we're like, yeah, we're going to beat Binance, but you can't support Litecoin. You need Bitcoin Cash. I'm sorry. Like, you just have to have it. And so the ability to unlock those boomer nonsense assets is like pretty critical for us.
Nice. Okay, so as probably came out before, I do think that censorship resistance and credible neutrality is the only thing that actually makes a difference. And therefore, if the US banking system is at the center of the slide, I think we lost our cause here. So anyway, my shout out here is Circles, not Circle, but the one with the S behind. Yeah, a kind of fair money project that Martin Kappelmann, founder of Gnosis, will talk about more this week, that tries to go a very different route and not necessarily be stable, but fair money.
I really interested in building this L2 ecosystem, combining with account abstraction, because now there are a few projects who are building low latency blockchains, and for Gearbox it's crucial because previously we tried to build a margin trading experience, and if the block takes 12 seconds, it's not a margin trading experience people really want. Yeah, it's like a very slow. Imagine your ChatGPT will produce 1 word per hour, yeah? So you never use it. And if you can make like, I don't know, 50 milliseconds, or at least like in Unichain, 250 milliseconds, we at least could achieve the same Web2 responsibility. And altogether with simplifying the interface, it could be a very good combination to make X10 totally emergent interface for end user.
Excellent. Guys, thank you very much. Very insightful, very enjoyable. Please, round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.